Hi, I'm J. Elvis Weinstein, and today I'm going to be alone with Jay Kogan, despite all advice to the contrary.
Don't be alone. Don't be alone. Don't be alone with Jay Kogan. Bonus episode!
Hi, and welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. I'm so glad you're here to spend another 15 hours with me. It's a very long podcast. No, it's not going to be that long. It's going to be a reasonable length. I don't know the length yet because it hasn't yet to be edited, but I'm going to assume that it's the length of a Los Angeles car ride, which again is 15 hours. Well, there you go. The kind of classy jokes that you could expect from Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. And that is exactly the subject we're going to be talking about today with my guest, J. Elvis Weinstein, who is a very funny comic, very funny writer, who is kind of a joke meister. Joke writing is hard. Joke writing is to be fresh and funny and new and get people to laugh. It's not so easy. It's not just a formula. It's not just a surprise. It's not just figuring out irony. It's a combination of many different things and an observation in the middle, a fresh observation and a strange take is hard to come by. So great jokes are hard to come by. And we'll talk about how to make better jokes. They don't all have to be great, but how to make better jokes as we continue to try and entertain people. I also want to encourage you to write to me at dbawjk@gmail.com and send me your suggestions about the show and your viewer mail, which I'm desperate for all the time. I also would encourage you to please subscribe to the show on YouTube. It takes but a minute to just press subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, and it will send my kid through college. So in a moment, we will meet the great J. Elvis Weinstein.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan is a show where I approach everyone with my own problems.
Sure.
And my problem in this particular case is sometimes I worry what's a good joke and what's not a good joke. What's a hacky joke?
Right.
Because believe me, my first instinct goes towards, that obvious thing.
Right.
But that's not always the best joke. And then, our jokes, if you know the formula, it's sort of less impressive. So you want to do one better than the formula or figure out.
Yeah, I don't believe in I don't think or really believe in formulas.
Right.
They obviously can help you and exist, I think. But it's ear. I think it's all about your
Do you believe
ear.
in the rule of three?
I believe I believe it's not an unbreakable rule.
Right.
But I believe that it helps rhythm so often,
I thought
that's what so many jokes are about, is rhythm.
I've always gone by the rule of three is the example, the second example, and the example that's completely different.
Example.
The funny one that's the opposite or different or surprising.
Right. A lot of times with the rule of threes, it's because you're making a list.
Right.
And so you need two just to establish that it's a list.
Right.
And then once you've established it's a list, you can be funny.
But can't you do the rule of one?
You can.
And then,
if one is funny enough or one is surprising enough, it's just all in the setup. It's all what you're setting up.
Right.
And everybody. Every situation has a different style joke appropriate for it.
Right. Right. I was in a movie once called The Aristocrats about the telling of a joke.
Right.
And it was just it was fascinating to watch a million different people sort of tell the same joke, and the joke itself isn't that great. It's kind of it's kind of a shitty joke, but it gives people a forum to riff on something. So
and in a way, I mean, the surprise of the anticlimactic punchline is the joke.
Yeah.
Because if it's told well, it's been built up so giant and flowery and disgusting usually.
Right.
That the anticlimax is the surprise.
So what goes into your process in terms of when you think, I mean, obviously jokes aren't computerized. You don't just come up with a process, but when do you know, that's a good one versus that's a bad one?
I've been a head writer on a few different things. And so one of the jobs of being a head writer is how do you turn down someone's pitch?
Right.
And so I had certain criteria. One of the things that I coined that you've probably heard on my show is first thought theater.
Mm-hmm.
where it's like that's the joke that everyone's going to come up with.
Right. Going back to the joke form, when did you become adept at this joking business?
I grew up in a joke house. I grew up with my parents were like super smart, super funny people, and jokes were kind of currency in our house.
Right.
Like there was never a time when a good joke was inappropriate in our house. And I say good joke to make a point, because there were times when a bad joke was inappropriate.
Right.
But
so what was the line? What's the good joke? And what's
the line is, do they laugh?
Okay.
You know, if my mom was enraged, I could make a joke and it would change the entire thing. But the wrong joke could make her madder.
Right.
You know, and she was pretty easy audience.
But did you know when you were stepping into the wrong joke area, or did you not? It's just
no, you let it fly and hope for the best.
Okay.
You know, but I noticed very early on as a kid that like the things that, my brother and I were both like, quote unquote gifted children.
Yeah.
You know, we both skipped a grade and we both were, people treated us very adult wise when we were very polite kids and stuff. But what I realized my mom would brag about on the phone to people is something funny we said.
Right. This is in Minnesota?
Yeah. Minneapolis. Yeah.
And I didn't know they had bright people in Minneapolis.
I know, we get out.
So you do stand-up comedy.
I do, though I haven't this year and I don't miss it really.
Okay. But you did.
But I've done it since I was 15.
Right. And sometimes you do it out here and sometimes you actually go on the road to do it.
Yeah.
So how often do you spend your time writing jokes?
I don't anymore, which is because I don't, it's like, just writing jokes isn't doing stand-up. Doing stand-up is writing jokes, trying, I'm writing jokes, trying, I'm writing jokes, trying.
Right.
And because I don't have the other part of the equation, my brain isn't ever in that mode. That's why Twitter was so fun for me.
Right.
Because it was a place to put my jokes.
Great jokes.
Because I'm going to have these thoughts either way.
Right.
I might as well, and I'm not doing much stand-up.
Right.
So I might as well just put
No,
them
you
here.
don't
And there's
pop
actually a bigger audience at that time
Much
on
bigger,
Twitter
yeah.
than for my stand-up.
You don't seem to bother with Twitter so much anymore.
No, it got hollow to me.
Yeah. Are you on Threads? Are you on one of the other
No,
places?
I tried, but I was just chasing. I was chasing 2014 Twitter.
Right.
I was chasing it.
Right. So where does that energy go?
I'm trying to figure that out right now.
All right.
I bought an ice cream machine this week. And
goes
so my
into ice
energy
cream.
is like, and I'm not even like it's not like I love ice cream.
Right.
But that's just kind of like,
Something you
I
can
always
do?
feel like I need to be moving forward on some
Yeah.
level. And so if it's not my career, it's like I'll fix something in my house or I'll learn a new cooking thing, so it's like, I just want to be able to like make ice cream. I want to be able to go have the flavor in my head and execute it. So I want to get that good.
And how's it been going?
I've made I'm 2 days in and I've made I've made a French vanilla and a straight and a Philadelphia vanilla.
What is the difference?
The difference is eggs, my friend.
Okay.
The French vanilla is a custard base, whereas the Philadelphia is merely cream and milk.
Okay. I noticed that I'm not a good joke teller. I don't think I'm a good joke teller. And that's not how I write. I don't write.
But you're very funny.
Thank you. But I don't feel like I've tried on Twitter. I've tried to do quips and funny things. I feel like it's forced. I don't feel like it's always so good. I don't feel like I have the exact right wording, the exact right reference, the exact right anything. I come from a world of improv where, throw it out there anyway.
Right.
And just do it. But I'm not honing the joke. I'm not polishing it, making it perfect. And so, but I feel like you consider all those elements in your jokes.
I do, but but I'm 37 years into doing it, so that it's hard for me to like separate. There's no conscious wheel turning going on anymore, so it's hard for me to say the real. Are you looking for advice on how to
kind of,
yeah.
But I'm also just like considering the joke itself. Like for example, when we grew up, we had Bazooka Joe comics,
right?
And at the Bazooka Joe comics, at the end of there would be a little story, and it'd end with the worst joke on the face of the earth.
Right.
Not even a joke.
Right.
Just something where like one character would say, I'm I have to do my homework, and the other character would say, well, I already did my homework. And then the other characters would, well, can I copy your homework? And the other character would say, no way. And that was the joke.
Right.
That was it.
Right.
That was the whole, and there's 4 panels
Right.
and really tasteless, hard, crusty gum
Right.
as the treat.
And you try to
afterwards.
figure out which you paid for. Did I pay for the gum or did I
Right.
pay for this shit?
So they could have used good joke writing at Bazooka Joe.
They could. I always thought like there's like there's a market for much better fortune cookie writing. Too.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And Dixie Riddle cups,
Sure.
terrible.
It's awful. Yeah.
Terrible. So I mean, why aren't the great Hollywood joke writers,
Because if, you know,
coming up with something where they can just pound those jokes out and spread them around the world?
Because
The good ones.
we aren't good business people.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I have no business acumen for any of that kind of stuff
I don't
either.
Anytime I've been entrepreneurial, it has bit me in the ass big time.
Yeah.
'Cause
But
I'm-
what, you make these documentaries and stuff? Has
I
that bit you
know.
in the ass?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Financially.
No,
I mean, I only paid for one of them, thankfully.
All right.
The other one someone else paid for.
But I
But
mean,
they weren't big money makers for me, no.
it didn't. Did you lose money?
Oh, yeah. On one of them, sure.
I didn't
yeah.
know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
Allison must be mad about that.
No, you know what? Well, this is one of the greatest moments of my marriage, actually, ever. Because I had been making this movie this was a movie called Michael Debar, Who Do You Want Me to Be?
Right.
And I'm very proud of the movie.
Right.
And you can still see it out there.
On the
On many platforms.
okay.
But it's a pay or rent kind of.
All right. Can you find it
But
on
it's
Can you
also
find it on
on,
Amazon Prime?
you can
Plus,
also,
that's the sponsor of this show.
but you can find it on Vudu and all these,
But you can
with
find it on Amazon
commercials.
Prime.
On Amazon Prime.
Yeah, that's one of my sponsors.
Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
it's not my other documentary. I Need You to Kill is actually free on Amazon Prime.
Oh, fantastic.
if you're
okay.
a subscriber.
Yeah.
But one of the great moments of my marriage was I was bitching about having to spend more money on something, and this is getting near the end of the project. So my wife had finally sort of seen the movie, and was really happy and encouraged because she had sort of like hands off for much of it because I think she was scared. And so I was bitching about the movie or something I had to pay for, and she goes, "Well, how much have we actually spent on this thing?" Like she didn't ask for a couple of years,
Right.
And I said the number, scared,
Right.
because it was a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But she was like, "Oh my God, that's amazing! I thought it was at least $500,000. Oh my
Wow.
God!
Okay.
If you did it, I can't believe that's so." And it was
Yeah.
like I literally started crying because I felt so guilty about spending all this money on
Right.
this thing. You know?
That's so great.
It was. It
That's
was
so
a great moment.
My wife has never given me that kind of relief valve
Yeah.
on anything. Not on anything. I mean, forget it. Even if I like forgot the cheese at the grocery store, there's
Yeah.
like that's hell to pay for several months. When you were working on Freaks and Geeks,
Yes.
did this kind of joke telling, the kind of joke construction telling that we're talking about, did it enter into it, or is it a different, once you started writing for sitcoms where it was character based and story based, did you sort of delve into a different kind of joke world?
It's different. I mean, it's definitely different. I think I was probably helped by having written for a lot of stand-ups.
Like yeah, you wrote for Gary Shanley. Who'd you write for?
I wrote for Louis Anderson when I moved out
Right.
here. I did a little thing for Shandling.
But
I did,
even before you moved, you worked in Mystery Science Theater.
Yeah,
that's a joke fest.
that was
too.
a joke fest. That
Yeah.
was all jokes.
So
yeah.
that's so those kind of jokes were just coming nonstop about the movie, through the movie, other
Right.
jokes, references, and other kind of stuff. That
Right.
was like
and
real,
when I was 17, when we originally did it, it was all improv. When we did it as a local show, it was all improv jokes. So that's where my particular skill set was, I think, useful to kind of just fill it up.
Right.
You know?
what was that like? I mean, Mystery Science Theater is legendary, and people, it's cultish. People loved it, love it still.
Yeah.
And what was it like to sort of be on that train?
Well, I wasn't really on the, it was really cool creatively at the beginning doing it,
Mm-hmm.
but I kind of left the show before all of its popularity and fame. So I didn't really get to feel that until years later when I came back and I did this thing called Cinematic Titanic
Right.
with the original cast, which summoned all the fans of Mystery Science
Right.
Theater to support it. And then I got to feel the love and
Right.
I think, the narrative of my contribution changed a little bit.
Right.
And,
Right.
like I felt fairly vindicated at that time because
Right.
at the time I felt pretty screwed over. And
Right. Well, you left under angry circumstances.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it was fun. It was fun to get my flowers
Right.
years later.
Yeah.
I remember when I moved out here, we were just talking about our old credits. When I moved out here when I was like 20, and I heard about like writers who, this was like 1992.
Yeah.
And I would hear about writers who would take MASH off their resume because it made them look old in
Right.
1992.
Right.
And that's kind of like, I see it now when I go, my best credits are 20 and 30 years old. They don't, they don't help me anymore. They help me in the my legacy
Right.
area, but they sure don't help you in show business.
Right. Right.
Because they stand out as very old to a young executive.
My last credit was Frasier.
Yeah.
The new Frasier. But it still looks like the old Frasier.
Right.
Because not everybody's aware that there was a reboot of a Frasier.
Right.
It's like, oh, so this guy's last credit was Frasier? So I don't know what to do about that.
Right.
I can still claim The Simpsons. The Simpsons is still on, so it doesn't feel quite so rusty.
Right.
But it is.
You don't have to say original writer.
My particular credit is pretty rusty on that one. So
and how was the new Frasier experience? Is that an ongoing experience? Or is
it was. It's not ongoing for me.
Yeah.
But it was an interesting, fascinating experience to sort of go back and revisit a show that you haven't been on for a very long time.
Right.
And it was run by people who weren't the people who were on the original.
Right.
So you're getting a synthesized version of what Frasier is to them. They've digested it and said, this is what Frasier is. And what you remember is something slightly different.
Right.
And so that was a little weird. But
I'm sure, yeah.
it was also, I thought at the time, it's like, it's not my job to tell them, no, you've got it wrong. Or I've,
yeah,
skewed.
you can't be that guy.
It's
You
sort of
can't be,
like,
that's not Frasier.
I'm on board with your way. And,
Right.
And so we'll see.
Yeah.
I will see. It has taken the country by storm. The
Yeah,
new
sure.
Frasier.
Like all television shows do now.
Right, exactly.
Yes.
Here's the thing. I still struggle with jokes, both positive and negatively.
Yeah.
I'm writing a drama right now.
Uh-huh.
And the torture of writing the drama is I'm constantly putting jokes in the drama because I'm used to it and it feels good.
But I don't think that I don't at all think that jokes are contrary to drama.
they are when it becomes too jokey.
Well,
and it
yeah, you
stops
can't.
it-
Yeah, you can't go out of your way to get them.
Right, but I'm doing that. Like
okay.
I'm like, oh, it's funny and this is funny.
Right.
It's ruining my instinct.
Yeah.
Is to make it funny, and my dream is to make it not funny. So what I have to do is put the funny in and they defunnify, take the
Right.
jokes out as I go, just to finish the scene.
Right.
I have to sort of get through it.
And do you find yourself putting situational jokes in, or you find yourself putting them in the character's mouth?
Both.
Okay.
But I mean, I can do, because you're writing action as well as dialogue, and so when
Right.
you're writing action, sometimes action is funny, sometimes dialogue is funny,
Right.
and sometimes there's a difference also between an interesting choice and a funny choice.
Right.
And sometimes people will read what I think is the interesting choice as the funny choice.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm again,
And
this is-
therefore less real.
yeah, exactly.
Right.
They take it takes the reality out of it, and it's already kind of unreal. And it's a mobster kind of thing. So it's sort of like,
Yeah, you can't wink too much at it, or it breaks pretty easily.
right. And
Yeah.
there's no threat. You want to keep the threat alive.
Right.
And it's too goofy, and comedy makes things goofy. I think the reason comedy gets a bad rap and also just doesn't get Academy Awards is because that goofiness, that joy, that childlike fun makes it seem unimportant.
Yes, it's a pressure valve.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So we haven't really conquered my joke writing thing. One last question about jokes.
Well, my answer to your joke thing is like, just email me and I'll fix them.
Okay.
I'll just fix them for you.
What's too hacky a joke for you, or is it just situational? A lot of on your podcast, a lot of time, Andy says something and then he's worried that it's hack, it's
Yeah.
bad, and it's like, to me, it's situational. To me, it's sort of like,
It is situational, but it's first thought theater is a big
Right.
one. I used to talk about when we did talk shows of the fake jokes, like if there's something about drunkenness and your idea is Ted Kennedy,
Right.
that's a fake joke.
because it's
Yeah.
just an old reference.
Because it's
not
just a
joke.
totem. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just you take it's a branch of first thought theater.
Mhm.
But it's just like if it feels pedestrian, or if it feels, if you, the listener, could have thought of it or did and didn't say it, that's the worst.
Right.
you know.
Although there's something that people give us for having said it. In other words, there are a bunch of people who don't have the wherewithal and the instinct to say these things that they think out loud.
Yeah.
And they think, oh.
But if you say a joke that you know is shitty and get a laugh, how do you feel good about that?
Yeah. I mean,
Or do you?
If I got the
Is
laugh.
the laugh's the thing.
If I got the laugh, I would say it was not quite as shitty in that moment.
Right.
But something about it felt right for that moment.
Right. Well,
And-
and it's that je ne sais quoi
Right,
that makes a good joke.
But that's also part of the improvisational aspect of the things I've learned over time. You have to take a leap. You have to say the thing
Right.
and see if it plays. You don't, if you're sitting at home, sculpting jokes for Twitter, that's different than being in the moment on a talk show or in a
Right.
thing and saying a joke.
That was one of the great things about Mystery Science Theater is that, especially like either when we did it live or when we were doing it as an improv show, the precision is massive.
Yeah.
You know, there is just an instant where that joke will work. You know, and so when we were improving it, you couldn't hesitate.
Exactly.
It's there in the moment, and if you don't say it, that moment's passed and it won't work.
Exactly right.
You know,
and that joke is shitty in 15 other places, but right in that
yeah,
one
it
place.
does not work as a standalone joke. Right. It can't be separated from its moment.
Yeah.
You know?
But
that's using the movie as the movie does the setups, you do the punchline.
Right.
So it's the same as a joke. It's like there's only a perfect, you have to find that perfect setup for the punchline.
Understood. It's still something that I'm battling to this day. Jokes.
Yeah.
But I don't do jokes. And when I write, I don't do jokes. I do characters and situations, and that feels more organic always. It never feels hacky because it feels like, oh, I'm in the scene with these people.
Right.
And so it's a different kind of thing. Stand up. I'm going to try and do a stand up act soon.
Are you?
I am. And so I'm writing things that might be considered. I don't know if they're observations or jokes yet. I'm having real trouble sort of determining what's joking, especially watching people do stand up right now, which is a very observational, not filled with jokes a lot of the time.
It's not. It's very personal.
Yeah. And so I'm trying to think, well, do I want to do that, or do I want to do the thing that I was the more joke based thing, or just some weird combination of both?
I think you have a latitude to do whatever you want.
I think I'm just going to be shitty at both of those things, though.
If you want a consultant,
all right,
I would love to help you. I would love to help. I've done that for people.
That's all we need. Then we'll then move on, because I've got what I came for, which is somebody who's going to write my act for me. Fantastic.
I will once I start.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to the next segment of the show, which is called Listener Mail.
Okay.
Now it's time for Listener Mail.
So this is Listener Mail is from Max Pross. Do you know Max Pross? Comedy writer of Gamble and Pross?
I do. I don't know him, but I know who he is.
He wrote, here's another question I'd like to hear folks answer. What are the biggest 180s in your life? Is there a book, movie, musician, anything that you once hated and then one day turned 180 degrees and now love them, or vice versa?
Oh, there's plenty. I can't think of anything. The first thing,
right,
where I went from hate to love.
Okay.
But I do feel like Seinfeld, something that I went from love to hate with.
You hate Seinfeld now?
I did by the end. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I hated the.
You guys rag on Seinfeld a lot on the show.
Yeah, well, it's mostly fueled by Andy, but I'm happy to jump on board.
Why do you hate Seinfeld?
I was actually talking about the show.
Yeah.
The show Seinfeld.
I'm talking about the show Seinfeld.
Just because the formula became so blaring and grating after a while.
The formula of story,
the shape of the stories and the shape of the coincidences.
Building a story from a very tiny thing and making it bigger and bigger and bigger until it becomes something much more.
and seeing where things, it was all very transparent where things were going to double back. And
did you feel the same way about Curb Your Enthusiasm?
No, because I started watching that show with that contempt, I think. So I never loved Curb Your Enthusiasm.
Right. So why do you think that Seinfeld seemed so invigorating the first time watching it, or the beginning, and why do you think that getting used to it ruined it?
Well, I mean, first of all, I think my affinity for Seinfeld was pretty high at that time. Right. As a young comic in the 80s.
So you're rooting for it.
So I wanted it to work,
okay.
first of all.
Yeah.
and I kind of liked that they, the way they started with it being based around how stand-up is kind of built, and they abandoned that fairly quickly. But no, I thought it was funny, and like I said, it was just I was rooting for it. And then they got good, and then the masturbation episode happened, and that got me on board for a few years.
Yeah. All right. It's a great episode. So now the final segment of our show.
Okay.
Is Moment of Joy.
All right.
A moment of joy.
My sort of go-to mood alterer for a lot of years has been Stop Making Sense. The film Stop Making Sense.
Did you enjoy the new re-release of it?
I just saw it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's not highly perceived.
Right.
You can hear. The main thing I noticed is that the audio mix was kind of more specific to the person playing on screen. That part kind of jumped a little bit out, so that you could put the visual and the audio together a little bit better, which is interesting. But it's just kind of one of my favorite things. It's like it itself is sort of a joyful celebration.
Do you love the music of it? Obviously would love the music of it, but also the conceptual nature of that performance.
Yeah, I just love everything about it. I like almost more than anything. I love the filmmaking.
Yeah,
I love how the choices Demi made to do this concert film and to tell it as a sort of story. And
have you heard stories of David Byrne when he sort of decided to do the big suit and how that came about and all those other weird choices that were made?
Yeah. And him standing in front of a video camera learning, coming up with dance moves. And,
exactly.
Yeah, I love I love the that's like a very controlled abandon that I like about it in a way.
He is an interesting guy, David Byrne, in that he seems now like a jolly old fella.
He does.
And 40 years ago, he seemed like a smoldering, angry cauldron of shyness and shame.
Yes.
And that development gives me a lot of hope.
It does too. You know who else is kind of like that is Letterman.
Yeah.
Letterman seems to have come into this emotional openness renaissance in the last 5 years.
How great is that?
It's awesome.
Well, Josh, thank you for being here.
Thank you for
being so funny, and thank you for being a distant friend. I want to make sure that I want to keep that wall.
Let's keep a wall.
Let's keep a wall.
Well, let's get closer to the wall so we can play catch over it.
Okay, we'll try.
All right.
I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you, the Kogan Nation. I've just started calling them that.
Really?
Kogan Nation. What do you think? No?
Call me.
I appreciate you, the audience, for Don't Be Alone with Jake Hogan for being here.
How about the Janiacs?
I appreciate you, Janiacs, for being here. And I would appreciate you writing me at dbawjk@gmail.com and telling me what you think of the show, what suggestions you have. Some viewer mail would be nice. I really could use that. And I'm about to figure out how to make hats for this thing. So we'll figure out how to do that.
Do I get a hat?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. No, guests will get swag.
Okay.
But the main thing is find a way to not be alone sometime today, tomorrow. Talk with somebody in person. Have a conversation. Let's fight loneliness all over the place. And I'll see you next time.